Surrounded myself by
So you're surrounded by it so much. How do you set like expectations on yourself and coaches' expectations for you, knowing obviously your dream or where you want to go is to play for Australia? So how do you kind of keep knowing where you are now, keeping expectations in check and not trying to
get ahead of myself? Yeah. I think I actually try and think about it so that I completely ignore what's going on outside of me, like selection, and I try and completely like ignore that side of the game and purely focus on playing. Because once you start thinking about, he wants to see me do this, or he wants to see me change how I'm doing this so that I can get to the next level, you start to play poorly because you forget how you play and you start to try and please everybody. So I think for me, it's purely about, I've been always a very instinctive player, so it's always just trusting my gut on how to play and rather, let my training that I'm doing take care of itself in the game and just purely focus on what I can do in the game rather than thinking about, okay, Colin Batchelor's the Australian coach, wants me to do this.
Yeah.
But I can't just think about that when I'm playing.
You have to. You're right. You can't just go out and please other people. You have to be able to just play off instinct and just take things out of your mind. So that's how you lose where you are when you've got too many things, like too many inputs going in, and you just got to play the flow, like just get in a flow state and just be able to.
And I think hockey, and I think this would be very similar across all Olympic sports, but being in hockey, it's very different from footy. So, you have, 3 or 4 people telling you, what they want to see you do. So, for example, I've got my club coach who wants me to do this, and then I've got Chris O'Reilly, who's our waist coach, who wants me to do this. And then I've got Batchy if he wants to have some input, not very often. And then we've got our junior programs as well. So our national junior squad coach is going to say, so you've got 4 people, and then obviously my dad's very heavily involved in hockey as well. So he's also going to give me not too much. Like he's more focused on me being a good person rather than playing hockey. So, but he might give me something as well. So if you sort of break it down, you've got 5 or 6 people that you're sort of trying to take little bits of information from. But if you can't just sort of switch that part off when you're playing, you're just going to be not going to be able to put it all together.
So that's obviously that's a training kind of thing. When you're in training, you kind of have to go about it and be like, I have to focus on these areas, so and so. But then when it comes to a game, it's kind of the training's got you to a point where you shouldn't have to really worry about that too much.
I think, separating is really important. So like if you go into a game saying, I want to do this, this and this, but if you're thinking about it during the game, you're not going to do it because you'll try and do it too much and it just won't work.
The other way,
Whereas
it goes the other way.
You completely, you write it down before you start. So I write my 3 objectives, this is what I want to do, and then I just go out and play. Usually I actually implement them way more than I would if I was just trying to do them all the time and way more effectively as well.
Yeah, that's a good point because if you get it out on paper, then it's out of your it's out of your mind and out of your consciousness, so it's just a thing that kind of happens because it's out.
Because you can't think clearly when you're just so focused on doing
the 3 things,
minute details. So, for example, one of mine for my whole, probably since 2018, I had a very laconic sort of style of play. So it looked like my body language that I didn't really care, didn't really want to be there, even though I'm extremely competitive, but it just was very relaxed in how I played.
Yeah.
Whereas I had to change that just purely because, there was times where I was a bit slow on, getting back or going forward. I was just a bit too relaxed about things. So for me, my number one objective is always, regardless of what the other 2 or 3 are, is body language.
Yeah, okay.
So Mark Knowles, again, is incredible at how fast, he's just sprints back to the mark, for a free hit. He's always there. He's always the first guy set up, and then he organises. So for me, my number one objective is Mark Knowles' body language.
Yeah, right.
So that's what that's the only thing that I take into a game is focusing on that.
Wow.
And the rest just takes care of itself.
Just goes on by itself. So obviously Mark Knowles is one of your kind of heroes in that regard. Do you kind of align your game similar with him? Obviously with that body language. There's other components as well?
There are other components, but not a huge amount. I try and, I obviously have people that I talk to about but I also try and steal elements from everybody's game.
Yeah.
I don't try and align myself with just one player, and I don't try and copy every player that I don't try and copy everything that they do, because then you just become not your own player.
Yeah.
So, I have a very different game style to most people. So I'm very aggressive in how I, play. I'm very forward-thinking, offensive, try and win all the time. Whereas hockey can be sometimes a bit like soccer. You're very controlled in how you build it up, whereas I can sometimes be a bit too aggressive.
Yeah.
So it's finding that balance. But
does that ever get you in trouble, that going too aggressive?
Sometimes. There's definitely times where I probably hit passes that aren't there.
Yep.
And that's probably a focus for me, is just, again, finding that balance of when to be aggressive and when to go forward versus when to just say, okay, like, we don't have the momentum right now. We just need to hold the ball. But I think Mark Noel's definitely a parts of his game that I really like. So his like aerial passing, throwing overheads was excellent. So I definitely took that element and added it to my game. Yeah. Whereas Mo Furster was extremely good at running the game as well, but he's also just his carrying the ball is really good. So he's super strong on the ball. Same with Van Doren. Yeah. So I take those elements and add them to my game. But there's not just
bits and pieces.
Yeah, one person that I say I'm going to be exactly like him.
No, because you don't want to be. You need to be a bit of individual. Yeah. Kind of, because you're not built like that person. You obviously haven't had the same experiences as them, so there's always going to be different things that make it different. And the biggest one is being an individual.
Exactly. You've got to be your own player, because I think, Chriso said this to me, I don't know, a year or two ago, and he said, you've got to remember that your game got you this far. So, what you were doing until this point is what got you here. So you can't just stop doing all of that and try and do something else. Yeah. So...
Because it wasn't just hockey for you at the start, was it? There was a lot of different sports, and we kind of got recognised